I'm Kat and I play red. Today we're going to be looking at a new release for Hansa Spiele. Well, kind of a new release. We're not going to be getting much new releases for a while now, so we're looking at an old new release. We're going to be looking at Hansa Teutonica. Now, in terms of modern board gaming, Hansa is quite an old game now. However, it's still as good as it was. Pegasus Spiele are bringing out a big box that includes 2 extra maps and a load of the other expansions. So we're going to take a look at the base game. During your turn, you'll get a specified number of actions as shown here on your player board. So all players will start with 2 actions per turn. Over the course of the game, you will get to remove cubes, so your number of actions can increase. But for now, we just have the 2 actions. For your 2 actions per turn, you can choose from 5 different actions, as shown here at the bottom of the player board. You'll start with some cubes in your personal supply, and other cubes will be in the general supply. So here we have the spare cubes for all of the current players. So let's have a look at the actions. You can take some cubes from the general supply into your personal supply. This is represented by the little bag symbol. Now, if you look higher up on the board, currently we can take 3 cubes from the general supply. And again, you can remove cubes here to make this action more powerful. But at the moment, it's 3. So this action allows you to take 3 cubes from the general supply into your personal supply. You can place cubes on the board, on the routes as shown here. You'll notice this little symbol here. Also, you can put one of these round markers on these spaces or a cube. You'll notice in the towns there are some spaces that are specifically round and some that are specifically square. Now, the piece you put on these must always match the shape. So the routes you can put either. So that's your second action. Your third action is to bump other players off a route. So this is the one slightly tricky part of the game. So let's have a quick look at how that would work. So let's say blue has these cubes and I quite fancy this route myself. So I can bump the blue player off there. However, I've got to pay one of my cubes back into the general supply for the privilege of doing that. The blue player then gets to take this cube and one of their cubes from the general supply to replace on the board. Now, it must be on a route adjacent to where they've been bumped from. So here, there's actually a ton of choices where the blue player could put their cubes. They could put them on this route, this, or any of these. Gosh, loads. So they could decide to put one there and there. I can also knock one of their merchants off the board, but this gets a little more expensive. So I can knock their merchant off. However, I have to pay 2 of my traders to the general supply. And in return, they get another 2 back to place. So in an ideal world, you don't want to be knocking off their merchants because you're giving them a huge bonus. So that's the bumping mechanism sorted. Another action, you can rearrange a number of pieces on the board depending on the numbers shown in the librarian. So at the moment I can move 2. So I could move my 2 pieces here and put them there or put them there, etc. You get the idea, you know how to move a piece. And again, this can increase. We'll talk about how you move those pieces later. Don't panic, I haven't forgotten. The last action available is to claim a route. Now, there's lots of bonuses and advantages to claiming a route. Let's have a look at the most obvious one. So, I've completed this route between these 2 towns. I can now choose to place one of my traders into either of these buildings. For now, I'm going to place it there. These cubes come off the board, go back to the general supply. However, in this case, there's an added bonus. I would get to take this tile. Now, there's quite a few of these bonus tiles. All of them have some great advantages. You don't have to play them immediately, and they will score you points at the end of the game. So for now, I'm just going to take this bonus tile, pop it next to my player board, and then when I've completed all my actions, I'll take one of the other bonus tiles and I'll choose a route to put it on. So let's pop it here. Now, you may notice I've put this at a bit of a funny angle, but there's a little arrow at the bottom here that you point to show which route it's relevant to. Obviously, space can get quite tight here, so if you put something there, you don't know. So you always point it so this arrow points to the route it's attached to. So I popped it there. Now, you may notice some of these towns have yellow scrolls, and these ones all act in a slightly different way, and this is how you'll get to remove pieces from your player board. So let's start in this corner and work our way around. So if I were to claim this route, instead of placing in either of these buildings, I can instead choose to unlock from this space on my player board. So in this case, it would be from my book in the middle. I'd take that marker off and pop it into my supply. These cubes go back to the general supply and you lose them and you don't get to build. However, you're getting the bonus instead. All the other routes work in a similar way, but give you different bonuses. So let's have a look here. This one unlocks this part of your player board. Now, by this point, you've probably noticed that the houses have different colour buildings. For example, there's a pink one here. In fact, we've got a nice display of all colours. We have white, orange, pink and black here. This part of the player board tells you what colour you're allowed to build in. So at the moment, I'm only allowed to build on the white spaces. However, if I remove this, I can then play in the orange spaces, the pink spaces and the black spaces. Though you only get to remove one cube at a time, I'm afraid. So I've completed that route, claim that, take that off, back to the general supply. The route up here, this one, is for your little bag icons here. Remember, that lets you take the cubes back from the general supply. So I'd complete this route, take a cube off. Next time I claim, I can take 5 from the supply, which is handy because all of these cubes are going back to the supply. These bottom ones here, this one here with the horse, this is how you'll get more actions. So if you complete that route, you can take one of the cubes off the action spaces here, and then I have 3 actions available to me. Now, if claiming that route and removing that cube was my second action, I'd immediately have a third action available to take. So these actually kick in the minute they occur. So bear that in mind. And last but not least, I need one more cube because this is a 4. This route here, you get to remove 1 cube from the little key slots up here, which we'll come on to in a little bit because that's to do with endgame scoring. So don't worry about that just yet. The last of the special routes we've not covered is this one here, which works slightly differently. You'll need a merchant disc as well as your cubes. And instead of claiming the building, you can move a merchant up onto one of these spots. Again, they're coloured the same as the houses, the white, orange, pink and black. So you must be allowed to build on that colour. And you pop a merchant there, and at the end of the game, you'll score the number of points as shown on the board. So, why would you want to place your traders and merchants in these offices in the towns? Let's have a look. So, if I'm going to use Rob's green cubes, if green completes this route here, he obviously has the usual choices. He can build in either of these. He could take any bonus tiles. Let's say he's going to build here. However, because he's claimed this route and I have control of this town, I actually gain 1 point. So I'm going to move 1 point up the score track and I'm in the lead. Yay! However, if at a later point someone comes along and places here, now we're equal. However, priority is always given to the player on the right. So in this case, if I were to claim this route, the green player would actually get 2 points because they control both these towns. When you build in towns, you must always build from the left to the right. So that makes a massive impact on the in-game scoring. You'll also notice that some of these spaces have actually got a little 1, if that's even visible. If you build in any of these places, you'll get 1 point when you build there. Building on these yellow cities, or the connected ones, is really important because obviously everyone's going to be wanting to upgrade their player board. So now, every time someone wants this, they're going to be giving me points. But, of course, beware that someone can always come in and stump you by doing that. Some of the bonus tiles actually allow for alterations with this. So this bonus tile would actually allow me to build kind of on the outskirts of the town and build there. In which case, I'd have the majority, I'd get the point. So these bonus tiles can be really great at messing around with things and changing the way things work. This one here, for example, actually allows me to swap pieces. So I could swap those round. Even though they're in the wrong spaces, it's fine, but I can swap them and I therefore have the advantage here. There are 3 things that trigger the game end. One of which is running out of bonus tiles. Every time you take one from the board at the end of your turn, you must place a new one from the stack here. If you can't place one, the game finishes at the end of your action, not even at the end of your turn. No more additional turns for people. That's it, game over. The end game also triggers if a player reaches 20 points, which you can see is marked really nice and clearly on this board. The third thing that triggers the game end is full towns. So here, every space that can be occupied is occupied here on this town. So that would actually cause this marker to move across. If someone built here, that's full. That would move across. So the minute there are 10 full towns, the game also ends. And this is where the keys come into effect. Remember these keys on the player board I spoke about earlier? Well, let's have a look at how they score. Obviously, you'll have your scoring for during the game. You'll have points from here. But the bulk of your score will really come from any routes you've managed to build or connections. So, let's build in Duisburg. Can't put a trader there, it's got to be a merchant. So, if at the end of the game I had this, I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 connections. I would multiply that 7 by the highest number shown on my keys. So at the moment that would be 2. So that would get me 14 points. Alternatively, you can see this increases. So if I'd managed to get rid of all of them, I'd get 4 times 7. There are also some other endgame points available on the board. If I'd managed to remove these cubes, I'd get 4 points as shown here. Everything except for the keys has got this little 4 points shown here. So at the end of the game, any of these that you've emptied will give you 4 points. Over the course of the game, you'll gain some of these bonus tiles, and these will be worth points at the end as well. So in this case, I have 3. They'd be worth 3 points. However, if I had 4, they'd be worth 6 points, and that increases exponentially. So not only do you get the bonus that these give, which is pretty awesome, but they'll give you endgame points. Every town that you control is worth 2 points. So again, the order of the pieces is very important here. So we have 1 each, however, I'm furthest on the right, so I'd gain the 2 points for this town. I'd gain the 2 points for here, however, green would get the 2 points for here because they're furthest on the right. The other way to earn a healthy chunk of points in this game, but during the game, is by completing the red route here, which we approve of wholeheartedly. If, when you place a trader or merchant in one of these, it completes the route between these 2 locations, you're going to get a big old chunk of points, depending on the player count and if you're the first, second or third. The first player, I think, gets 7, second place 4, third place 2. But that does depend on the number of players, so make sure to check that. So that's another way to get a nice big chunk of points during the course of the game. Part of the reason that Hansa is considered stable and therefore getting the big box reprint is its elegance. Realistically, there's 5 actions you can do. You only get a quite small number of actions in a turn, so it should move quite quickly. Currently, according to my player board, I have 3 actions. I go 1, 2, 3. That's my turn, done. Unless you have procrastinators in your group, obviously. I have to admit, I've looked at what is in the big box, but I haven't looked at the new artwork, so I don't know how much of that has changed. It's a bargain. I know I've seen a pre-order for it in the US for $35. I don't know what it's going to be here in the UK or in Europe, but bargain. You've got 2 other boards, you've got some cards, you've got some tiles, you've got a load of other stuff aside from the base game. So check it out. Hope you liked this video. If you did, thumbs up, subscribe, come and say hello to me on the socials, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I play red. Thanks for watching. Bye.